not. Let me just wait for it.
So we've got camera there. You're live on Facebook.
Great. Okay, so we're live on Facebook and Instagram right now, and I said I would do a go live today because I've been getting a ton of questions about different things and wanted to make sure I was responding to all of them in the best way. So I got a bunch of questions submitted before. I'm going to go through those. So the first was, can an entrepreneur with work experience join the ClearBank team? So this is a giant yes. Right now, the whole ethos behind ClearBank is by founders, for founders. We are here to fund 2,000 different founders this year, and so we really overemphasize on hiring ex-founders as well. So anyone that has that experience of building a company, of understanding what that's like, we actually want your experience at ClearBank. You have the most amount of empathy for who our target audience is, and you will find everyone here has their own founder story. I'll give you a couple of them. Like one of our lead software engineers was the guy that came up with the original Nintendo hack to play Nintendo on desktop. It was actually sold to Nintendo when he was like 17 years old, meaning he's like a complete whiz kid, which is pretty freaking cool. We have people that have built, hair extension companies and all sorts of different things. So if you've been a founder before, we would love to have you apply at ClearBank, and you can just follow at ClearBank on Instagram. Reach out to our recruiter, Leanna. Her email is Leanna, Liana, at clearbank.com, and would love to see you. Okay, next question. How do I stay focused, and what's my secret sauce? I think I'm pretty human. I'm like everyone else. You can get totally distracted. I think we all need to find ways to really deal with like our phones, because they are the ultimate distraction devices. They're the ultimate productivity devices. So it's like eating. It's like you can't just stop. You just need to control this a little bit better. And so, one of the things that I always think about is like, in a day, I can actually only do 3 things. And I force myself, I don't have one of them with me, but like on my little Post-its, to write like, what are the 3 things that could actually move the dial on my business, and then bite the bullet right away and do like 1, 2, 3 in that order. I like Mickey Erickson. He's asking me if it's tequila time. It's always tequila time. Now that it's Friday, hopefully tequila time more soon. But but anyway, focus on those 3 things. Those are really, really important, because no matter who you are, you can never do an unlimited amount of things. And so if I'm focused on that and really prioritizing, it makes a huge difference to me. I try to get enough sleep. That's not always possible at all. And I try and solve problems in real time. Like one of the things that we don't believe in a ClearBank is like, we put everyone in one office. Like no one works remotely here, and we have a downtown location, and that's not ideal for some people, but it creates all of this like energy and entropy where we're all just solving problems at the same time. And there's no question that our best ideas at ClearBank have always come up. We've basically figured them out after 9 p.m. when a bunch of us are here, just like working and solving problems. And so I really believe in the value of that, and it keeps me focused and it keeps me productive, because when are you gonna get some magnums down your nose? That's funny. Next question, do I invest in companies outside of Dragon's Den? Yes, the answer is certainly. We'll invest in 2,000 companies this year through ClearBank. I will do my own personal equity investments, and then I've done probably more deals in the show than outside. But outside the show, I've done a bunch. I recently did a company called Lilia that's all about making it easier for women to figure out all of the information on their own fertility without having to go to a doctor. And so that was one of them. Someone just asked me, do I eat burrito boys? This is the funniest comment. Of course I eat burrito boys. I'm from Toronto. So definitely. Next question was any advice to young entrepreneurs? Really great question. I think my biggest advice to young entrepreneurs is you have to live your life for yourself. I get a lot of young people that are like, look, I'm like in this job for 2 years because I have to have it for 2 years on my resume. Like, make no mistake, that's bullshit. You have to live your life for yourself, not for a resume reader that might read your resume. I mean, if you look at my resume, I mean, I went from coffee shop to fishery to e-commerce to coupons to, media to financial services. I mean, I knew nothing about fintech when I entered this space, almost 5 years ago now, like truly, truly nothing. And so I think that that is, part of it. And so, yeah, my other advice for young entrepreneurs is don't live it for anyone else. If you want to start a business, you should do so right now. Like, you should not, you shouldn't wait. There's never a perfect time to start a business. You never feel like you have the perfect idea or you have enough money. But as soon as you jump in and get started, you start the iterative process to really get moving. Oh, this is a good one. What do I do in my spare time? I have an amazing group of friends that I love to see, lots of entrepreneurs in my friend circles, and we're also constantly brainstorming new ideas. I like to go sailing in the summer, I like to go skiing in the winter, and I like to be fairly active with a bunch of different things. Next one, what is your best option to get a loan? That's a great question. So typically most conventional loans take personal guarantees, which means that if you don't pay the loan back, the bank can come after your personal assets. I've always thought that was incredibly negative. Like, that's a terrible thing to have happen, is that you're putting your personal assets on the line. And so that's one of the things we don't do at Clearbank. When we give companies money, we don't secure them against any personal assets. If your business can't pay us back, we don't go after any of your assets. And so obviously if you're an e-commerce business with online revenue, I would encourage you to look at us. And if not, I would look for small business loans that don't have personal guarantees behind them. So there's almost none of those, but that's what I would keep looking for. Someone asked, do you believe you should mix friends, family with business? It's actually a really good question. I have never, all of my friends that I work with, I mean, I obviously work with my partner, Andrew, who's my boyfriend as well. So I have always had friends that have worked with me. I think that's the best deal in life because you get to work with people you really love. And I always say if I wasn't working with them, I'd be spending time doing other things with them. And so I've always figured out a way to make that. That doesn't mean there isn't like stressful days and terrible days, and but that would happen with anyone. And it's way worse, I think, in many ways when it happens with a stranger. And so I've always believed that was kind of an okay thing. Do you use recruitment companies to hire talent? Yeah, we've used recruiters before. We're largely bringing our team in-house, though. Someone asked when I was going to come up with my own podcast. I think I did one last year called Earning Curve, so you can tune in and see that. It was really great because we took entrepreneurs and we interviewed them with mentors, and we got to see what they were talking about. But I will look at doing a podcast in the early days. Let me just look at the other questions here. Keep asking them, guys. Okay, next one. What is your biggest mistake, failure, and what was the greatest lesson? I've had a lot of failures in my career. Like, I would say that 80% of the ideas that I've put into market have not worked. That's like the true ratio. You put a lot of products in the market, see if they work. Oftentimes they don't, and that's really hard. That's why you want to have a team around you, and you want to do something with co-founders, because you basically have to look at what's working, and then you have to try the next iteration of that with just as much energy as the last bit. And so I can tell you, when we were building out Bytopia, we tried a lot of different businesses. I mean, we tried a competitor to Uber Eats called You Eat. We had 100 restaurants on board until we had to shut the whole thing down because it wasn't working. We started one of the beauty box subscription companies, and that story ended with us having like 5,000 units of self-tanner in my office. And so, that didn't work out. But that finally led us to SnapSaves, which ended up being, one of my first big exits. And so never underestimate the power of failure in terms of making it. And also, failure in terms of your own confidence. I remember living through some pretty crazy disasters in my career, and it's those moments that I look back on the most and think, oh man, I'm so glad I lived through this because this is so much easier. Oh, this is fun. What are some of your favorite restaurants in Toronto? So I live on King West, so off the top of my head, I love Gusto. I obviously love Goldie. That's one of my angel investments. I love Barrow on King Street. I love Buka, is such a yummy place. And then I love Pearl for dim sum because I'm a big dim sum fan on a Sunday. Oh, this is a good question. When you think about the evolution of e-commerce, how will that look in the next few years? I think we're seeing a lot of really cool stuff happening in e-commerce because we're just brands are now allowed to create direct relationships with customers, and that never existed before. They were always intercepted by retailers. And so it's really cool the types of dimensions we can have for that. So I think there's going to be a lot more models that are about drug delivery and drug discovery. So you're seeing the rise of companies like Hims, which we backed at Clearbank. That's been very cool. You're seeing entire kind of home goods categories being disrupted. So that's everything that's been happening in kind of the mattress spaces. You're seeing a lot of interesting direct to consumer brands that are looking very different. So Knixwear looks very different than any other underwear company that's existed before. Majuri looks very different than any other jewelry that's existed before. And so I think those are all the things that are going to happen, and the market's going to continue to grow because there's just too much retail footage, square foot, for the footprint we actually need. And if you can save people time and deliver things to their house, people are always going to want that more. This is really good. Do you think secondary education is necessary for success? 100% no. I have seen some of the most effective entrepreneurs have a high school education. Being good at being an entrepreneur is not having an MBA. It's all about having a GSD, and a GSD is a get shit done degree. And so if you are willing to work for it, really, and every day you're just waking up being what are the 3 things that make the biggest difference in this business, and let me go do them. Let me go hustle, find a deal, find a partner, hire this person I need to do. If you just keep doing that day after day after day, eventually something hits. And I've seen that be way more successful than other things. My sister asked, when are we hanging out? Well, she can come see me any of the time. She also asked me in the question before what I'm getting her for Christmas, as if I would tell you that on a Facebook Live, but good try. Finally, she asked me which my favorite sister was. I was absolutely not. We could never answer that. So that's that. What is my favorite part of Dragon's Den? That's a good question. I think it's always seeing the diversity of companies every year. One of the things that's cool is that we produce these specials every year on the show, and they have nothing to do with what the producers think is topical. It's actually what the pitches are. So this season, the new season just premiered on Thursday, by the way, so you guys should all tune in. But this season, there's a whole episode on upcycling and ditching the plastic, because I think all of us are now way more aware of how bad single-use plastics are. So there's so many cool entrepreneurs that are building solutions around that. And that we had a whole disruption episode, which is about entrepreneurs that are disrupting big businesses. And every year, last year we had a cannabis episode. So every year we're seeing slightly different things. So I love that. My co-stars are awesome. We all got there in very different places. So there are days where we fight and there's days when we hug, but it's pretty intense. What's the age limit from the youngest to the oldest that you've hired at Clearbank? Oldest person at Clearbank is probably in their 50s. Youngest person is probably just out of high school. So very, very big age range. Let's see the next one. Vancouver or Toronto is one of the questions. Well, I love Toronto now because we're building out here, and I think this is an amazing tech ecosystem. I grew up in Calgary, so I feel like my heart is always in the West Coast, and my brother lives in Vancouver, and it's a beautiful place, and I think Whistler is one of the absolute gems of this country. Next thing. Do you accept pitches outside of Dragon's Den? How should someone contact you? Yeah, typically you can message me on Instagram. You send me a note on LinkedIn. I don't do a ton of deals. It's a lot. I usually typically do deals on the show just because I get so many through that. But definitely also going through Clearbank is a great way to get my attention. Oh, next question. We have a question from a SHAD fellow. So for those of you that don't know what SHAD is, it's a summer program when you're in grade 10 and grade 11. That's amazing. Someone asked what my SHAD experience was like. And they said, oh my gosh, this is the best. They said, I want my life to be Michele trifecta, which is Michele Romanow, Michelle Obama, and Michelle from Destiny's Child. That's pretty much the greatest thing anyone could have ever told me. So thank you for including me in a trifecta of Michelles that are far better than I am. But my experience at SHAD was amazing. I got to go to the Queen's Castle back in the day. It was the first time I met a lot of like-minded peers. And so if you are of that age, you should definitely think about applying to going. Or if you have kids that are in grade 10 or grade 11, it's an awesome program for them. Let's see, another one. Did you have a sense of big numbers when you started your first business? That's a good question. So that could kind of mean a bunch of different things. I think what you mean by that is like, did I know how successful it would be? And the answer is definitely not. I had no idea. But we were good at trying to produce early traction and early models to really figure out what would generate value. I think all entrepreneurs need to be fairly good at math. And it's not even hard math, it's just really fast mental math. I always say it's like, it's arithmetic, but it's doing it really quickly with a bunch of zeros in your head that really matters. And I think that was important. How do you maintain discipline with a busy travel schedule? It's really hard. There's no question that it's hard to eat better and go to the gym. I find sometimes I try and fast on days that I'm on planes because the plane food is never really that good anyways, and the destinations I'm going to usually have way better food than the stuff you're going to eat on the plane. Sometimes I try and get a workout in, but I just actually try and get outside because I'm usually not very good with hotel gyms. But the biggest thing is as soon as I get back, I try and get myself back on track. So that's probably like the biggest one. The cheapest water at an airport is always at the McDonald's. That's one travel hack. I also only book one-way flights. Like I never book round-trip flights because then they're easier to move when you need to move them. And you can look at Hidden City ticketing, which is also a good way to save money on flights. Someone asked me any advice on how to get over. We need a cable because it's we're losing power. Hi Christy. Any advice on how to get over a failure? I think that this is really hard, and this is why it's important to have like a great circle of people around you, and especially other entrepreneurs that have failed, because other entrepreneurs will always remind you that most of their career was failing, and then there was a couple of things that worked out and they ended up being big successes, but it does really take a lot of time. And so that was always it. I started, working on new ideas. I tried to distract myself with what was up and coming next. But there's no question that I've had lots of businesses fail. I've had lots of things not work out. And I've just always tried to dive right into looking at the next thing. Someone says, hi from Saskatoon. Hi Saskatchewan. How old were you when you started? I started my first business in undergrad, so I was probably 19 or 20. I started a little business called The Tea Room, which was on the Queen's University campus, and our goal was to be a zero consumer waste coffee shop. So that was kind of the first, and then from there I found Ian Tolley in undergrad, and we started a caviar business together, and then that became, Bytopia and Snap Saves and a bunch of others that we did together. But anyway, if you start young, it's really good. We're just going to put in some power here. There we go. So then we can keep live streaming. I love this person. Who are you? H-Turbo. Battery life under 35% causes physiological. Live video paused. Oh, are we off the pause? Yeah, we're off the pause. Would you be a guest speaker at any other university than Queen's? Yeah, for sure. I'm so glad someone said the premiere of Dragon's Den was awesome. I'm so glad you watched it. It is also on the GEM app, which is the CBC like Netflix style streaming app. So make sure to download that on your phone because it's the easiest way to watch Dragon's Den. What do you think you do better than most people, and what do you delegate to others? This is a really good question. So in my mind, what I think generally I'm good at building partnerships. I'm good at hiring, and I'm good at figuring out how we're going to get a little idea into something that's big enough with enough traction. And so those are all fairly general things, but that means so I build a lot of relationships myself, and I follow up on those relationships myself. You can't possibly outsource that. The next thing is you have to meet the people you're hiring, and those create your teams. Like, you have to build your own culture. You can never actually outsource that. And then I think that's probably all. Can you guys hear me? Someone just wrote in that they can't hear me. Let's see. Can you guys write in the thing if you can hear me? Let's see at the bottom. Yeah, okay. How old was I when I started the tea room? I was 19. That's awesome. And then, okay, let's answer a couple more of these. Oh my gosh, what's my favorite dog breed? That's a cute question. I really love greyhounds. I think they're beautiful dogs. And so maybe greyhounds, I mean, I've never seen a golden retriever I also didn't fall in love with. And I would love to have a dog if I wasn't constantly on the road. How do you turn on and off work? Sometimes I'm at home and still think about work. I think about work all the time, but I think about work as solving some of the challenges I care the most about. So I'm often like not too flustered when you're thinking about work. I think it's when nothing's happening at work, you shouldn't be thinking about work. You should be enjoying the time with your friends and enjoying the time with your family. But when you have a big work problem to solve, I don't think there's anything wrong with like really letting your brain process that. I like love the feeling of waking up in the morning and being like, oh, I think I have like a solve for something that's going on. I think if you really hate your work, that's a really hard place to be a part of. And my best advice would be, looking and doing anything to position yourself to find work that you might really like. But that's what I would think about. What was my most successful deal in the history of the Den? There's been a couple amazing ones. RVZ was amazing. They built the Airbnb for RVs. So if you're looking to go on an RV trip, they're one of the best, and they have done, just like enormous revenue growth since I invested. Endy was another big story. Sold to Sleep Country last year for almost $100 million. So that was a great deal from the Den. And there's been a lot others. Next question. Do you think having an engineering degree was more useful than your business career if you had a business degree? Great question. I actually think my engineering degree was way more useful than my business degree. I think that it's easier to learn business outside of like school. Like, you can read books and you can do a bunch of things to really enhance your business knowledge. But engineering is hard. It gives you an incredible fluidity with numbers, and I think it was critical to what I got. I had someone who said, thanks for taking a selfie with me. Yeah, if you ever see me on the street, you can totally ask me for a picture. Some people are so nervous. And I had someone say Endy rocks, which is awesome. Let me go back. There was another good question here. Can you speak more about how you built those relationships and how you develop that confidence? Confidence just comes from a lot of time working at something. Like, you just have to keep going and keep being persistent, and eventually something hits, and you can see that your hard work can pay off, and getting good mentors that can help guide you. And then investing in the relationships that you're building your business with. I've always been the absolute closest with my business partners. They've always been my best friends because we've spent so much time working on problems and challenges that they like. Next, we have a couple more. Do the dragons all get along off camera? Yes, we are all friends off camera. Sometimes it definitely gets a little heated on camera, and that is not a joke. That's because we're sitting in the same room for 10 hours a day, and everyone gets a little irritated with someone after 10 hours. But no, we're all amazing friends. We all like are in a WhatsApp group. We like talk to each other. Like it's really, really close. Let's see if there's any others. Is being stubborn a good or a bad thing? That's a really good question. I think you need to have conviction. Like I believe that it's like strong opinions but loosely held. And so you have to have conviction when you're going into an idea to go build it. But then as soon as you're seeing other data that might look something different, you have to be like, oh, well, let's actually look at that. And so I think that being stubborn is the wrong way to think about it. I think it's having convictions so you can go out and build something, but it's holding those opinions loose enough that you can see other pieces of data. And this is the last question, we'll do this one. Looking back, do you see yourself always being an entrepreneur? No, I think, I got lucky. I met, Anatoly in undergrad, and I met Ryan in undergrad, and we started a business together, and that was life-changing for me. And I think that it was the fact that the three of us were doing together that gave me that early confidence. I think there was a real chance that I would have been, worked at a company and built it that way. But I love my life now. I'm so happy I got to be an entrepreneur. I got to build, every day I feel like I get to build something from nothing. There's like that feeling of building, I think is pretty irreplaceable. So I would do that. Anyway, thank you guys all for tuning in. This was awesome, and like tons of engagement, tons of questions. I will definitely post it to my feed as well, but we'll keep doing this and would love to share more. Thanks, guys.